I watched a bird this morning building its nest and it hit me. That little creature never once stopped to ask if it deserved a good home. It never wondered if it was qualified to build something beautiful. It just started gathering twigs one by one like it owned the whole tree. And you know what? In a way it did. Most of us have forgotten something that bird never questioned. We already own the most valuable real estate in the universe. Not some piece of land you can put a fence around, but something far more precious. We own our thoughts, our choices, our responses to whatever life brings our way. Yet here we are, most of us, acting like we're just renting space in our own lives. I was 31 years old when I finally understood this. I'd been living like a tenant for years. You know what I mean by tenant living? Making the minimum effort, doing just enough to get by, always looking for someone else to fix what was broken. I'd wake up each morning hoping somebody else would make my day better instead of realizing I held the keys to the whole building. The wake-up call came during a conversation with a successful businessman who became my mentor. We were sitting in his office and I was giving him my usual list of reasons why life wasn't working out for me. He listened quietly, then walked over to his window and said something I'll never forget. "Jim, see that tree outside? It doesn't ask permission to grow. It doesn't make excuses for bad weather. It just grows because that's what trees do. The question is, what do humans do when they stop making excuses?" That question changed everything. I realized I had been living like a victim of my circumstances instead of the owner of my possibilities. They wake up each morning acting like victims of their circumstances instead of architects of their destiny. They're waiting for permission to succeed, waiting for conditions to be perfect, waiting for someone else to change their life. But here's what I learned from my mentor many years ago, and it changed everything. I was 25 years old, struggling to make ends meet, full of dreams, but empty in my bank account. I had every excuse in the book. The economy was tough, my boss didn't appreciate me, I didn't have the right education, I came from the wrong side of town. Sound familiar? My mentor looked at me one day and asked a simple question that shattered my victim mentality forever. He said, "Jim, who's in charge of your life?" I started to give him my usual list of complaints, but he stopped me cold. "No," he said, "who's in charge?" Really in charge? That question hung in the air like smoke. I wanted to blame my circumstances, my upbringing, my lack of opportunities. But something deep inside me knew the truth. I was in charge. I had always been in charge. The problem wasn't my circumstances. The problem was that I had been living like a tenant in my own life instead of the owner. You know what separates the successful from the struggling? It's not education. It's not connections. It's not even talent. It's this simple realization. You already own everything you need to succeed. Not the things you can touch, but the things that truly matter. You own your thoughts, your decisions, your responses, your effort, your attitude. You own your morning and how you start it. You own your evening and how you end it. You own the space between stimulus and response where all your power lives. The moment everything changed for me was when I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What can I learn from this?" When I stopped saying I have to and started saying I choose to. When I stopped looking at problems and started looking for possibilities. That shift, that simple mental shift, was worth more than any inheritance anyone could leave me. Here's what most people don't understand. You've been given everything you need. Not everything you want, but everything you need. You've got a mind that can think, hands that can work, a heart that can feel, and most importantly, a will that can choose. But instead of using these gifts like an owner, most people use them like a renter who's afraid of getting evicted. Think about it this way. When you rent an apartment, what's your mindset? You do the minimum. You don't improve it. You don't invest in it. You don't take full responsibility for it. You just exist there until something better comes along. But when you own your home, everything changes. You invest in it. You improve it. You take care of it. You make it better because you know your efforts will pay off. The same principle applies to your life. Are you renting or owning? Are you just existing until something better comes along, or are you investing in yourself, improving your skills, taking full responsibility for your results? I remember the exact moment I made the switch. I was sitting in my beat-up car after another day of mediocre results, and I made a decision. I said to myself, Jim, you're going to start treating your life like you own it. You're going to invest in it like it's your most valuable possession. You're going to improve it like your future depends on it, because it does. That night, I didn't just go to sleep. I planned, I dreamed, I took ownership. I looked at my life like a property I had just inherited and asked, what needs to change? What needs improvement? What potential am I not seeing? Why do 95% of people live reactively while only 5% live creatively? It's simple. The 95% wake up each morning and ask, what's going to happen to me today? The 5% wake up and ask, what am I going to make happen today? The 95% hope things get better. The 5% make things better. Which group are you in? Be honest with yourself. When you wake up tomorrow morning, will you be waiting for life to happen to you, or will you be ready to happen to life? Your daily wake-up call is life asking you the same question my mentor asked me, who's in charge? Every morning, life knocks on your door with that original will in hand, ready to remind you that you're not the servant, you're the owner. You're not the victim, you're the victor. You're not the passenger, you're the pilot. But here's the thing about ownership. It comes with responsibility. When you truly own something, you can't blame anyone else for its condition. You can't point fingers when things go wrong. You can't make excuses when results don't match your expectations. Ownership means the buck stops with you. Some people are afraid of that responsibility. They prefer being victims because victims don't have to take action. Victims can stay comfortable in their complaints. Victims can blame their parents, their circumstances, their luck, but owners have to do something about their situation. The beautiful thing about taking ownership is that it gives you power, real power. Not the power to control everything that happens to you, but the power to control everything that happens within you. And that's where your real estate is, not in the external world, but in the internal world of your thoughts, decisions, and responses. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you'll have a choice. You can wake up like a servant wondering what the day will do to you, or you can wake up like an owner wondering what you'll do with the day. You can approach your challenges like someone who's just trying to survive them, or like someone who's going to learn from them, grow through them, and use them to become stronger. The truth is, you've never been a victim. You've only been someone who temporarily forgot that you're the owner. Today is the day you stop forgetting. Today is the day you claim your territory. Today is the day you stop being a victim of your life and start being the architect of your destiny. Tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes, remember, you're not waking up in someone else's world. You're waking up in yours. The question isn't whether you have what it takes. The question is whether you'll use what you've already been given. The world isn't happening to you. You're happening to the world. Now start acting like it. Now here's what's fascinating about human nature. Two people can look at exactly the same situation and see completely different worlds. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was struggling in my early 30s. I had a friend named Dave, and we'd often walk through the old part of town where there were these run-down buildings, broken windows, weeds growing through the sidewalks. Every time we walked that route, Dave would shake his head and say, "Look at this mess. This place is hopeless. Nothing good could ever come from here." But there was this other fellow I knew, an entrepreneur named Sam. One day I took the same walk with him, and when we got to that exact spot, his eyes lit up like Christmas morning. He said, "Jim, look at the potential here. Prime location, solid bones on these buildings, just waiting for someone with vision to see what this could become. Same street, same buildings, same broken windows." But Sam saw something Dave never could. That's when it hit me. The difference between those who succeed and those who struggle isn't what they're looking at, it's what they're looking for. Here's what separates people who create wealth from people who struggle financially. People who build strong relationships from people who feel lonely. People who stay healthy from people who get sick all the time. It's not their circumstances, it's their philosophy about what's possible within those circumstances. Your philosophy is like a pair of glasses you wear every single day. If your glasses are scratched and dirty, everything looks distorted and unclear. If your glasses are clean and focused, you see opportunities everywhere. Most people are walking around with philosophy glasses that are so scratched up with negative thinking, past failures, and other people's opinions that I can't see the possibilities right in front of them. Let me share something that changed my whole perspective on what's possible. I was working a job I hated, barely making enough to pay my bills, and I kept thinking, this is just my lot in life. Some people are born lucky, some aren't. One evening, I was complaining to my mentor about how unfair everything was, and he said something that stopped me cold. Jim, the problem isn't that opportunities don't exist. The problem is that you're not seeing them because you're not looking for them. He was right. I had trained my mind to look for problems, not possibilities. I had become an expert at spotting everything that was wrong instead of everything that could be right. My philosophy had become my prison. But here's the beautiful thing about philosophy. You can change it. You don't have to keep the same mental glasses you've been wearing. You can get a new prescription anytime you want. The seasons taught me something profound about this. You know how I love talking about the seasons. They're one of life's greatest teachers. Winter always looks permanent when you're in the middle of it. The trees are bare, the ground is frozen, everything looks dead. But underneath that frozen ground, something amazing is happening. Seeds are getting ready. Roots are strengthening. Life is preparing for spring. The same principle applies to your life. What looks like a dead end might actually be a setup for something beautiful. What feels like winter in your career, your relationships, your finances, that might just be life preparing you for your personal spring. I remember when I lost my first business. Everything I had worked for seemed to crumble overnight. I felt like a failure. But my mentor helped me see that failure wasn't the opposite of success. It was fertilizer for success. He said, Jim, this isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. The question is, what are you going to learn from this that'll make you stronger? That shift in thinking from happening to me to happening for me. That's the difference between victim philosophy and owner philosophy. Victims see problems. Owners see preparation. Here's what successful people understand that unsuccessful people miss. Every challenge is asking you a question. It's not asking, why me? It's asking, who are you going to become because of this? It's not asking what's wrong, it's asking, what can you learn? The questions you ask yourself determine the life you live. Poor people ask poor questions. They ask, why don't I have enough money? Instead of, how can I add more value? They ask, why doesn't anyone appreciate me? Instead of, how can I become more valuable? They ask, why is this happening to me? Instead of, what is this trying to teach me? Rich people, and I don't just mean financially rich, I mean rich in all areas of life, they ask rich questions. They look at the same situations everyone else faces, but they're looking for different things. While others are looking for someone to blame, they're looking for someone to become. While others are looking for excuses, they're looking for opportunities. I'll never forget the day I learned to see opportunity in disguise. I was at a business conference, feeling intimidated by all these successful entrepreneurs. I was thinking, I don't belong here. These people have something I don't have. But then I overheard a conversation between two millionaires. One was telling the other about his biggest breakthrough, and you know what it was? A business failure that forced him to develop new skills. His biggest disaster had become his greatest teacher. That's when I realized successful people don't avoid problems, they collect them. They understand that every problem solved is a skill earned, and skills are the real currency of success. Your perception creates your reality, not your circumstances. Two people can have the same circumstances and live completely different lives based on how they perceive what's possible. One person sees a setback and thinks, I'm not cut out for this. Another person sees the same setback and thinks, I'm being prepared for something bigger. The truth is, life is always offering you two teachers, inspiration and desperation. Most people wait for desperation before they're willing to change, but wise people learn from inspiration. They see what's possible and move toward it before they're forced to. So here's my question for you. What glasses are you wearing? When you look at your life, your challenges, your opportunities, what are you looking for? Are you looking for reasons why things won't work? Or are you looking for ways to make them work? Are you looking for someone to blame or someone to become? The world is full of possibilities, but possibility thinking is a skill. Like any skill, it gets stronger with practice. Start small. When something goes wrong today, instead of asking why me, try asking what now. Instead of looking for what's missing, look for what's available. Instead of focusing on what you can't control, focus on what you can create. Remember, the same sun that melts the ice hardens the clay. It's not what happens to you that determines your destiny. It's what you do with what happens to you. And that starts with changing your philosophy about what's possible. I once watched a master carpenter build a house, and it taught me everything I needed to know about success. This craftsman treated every single board like it was going into his own home. He measured twice, cut once. He checked every angle, tested every joint. When someone asked him why he was being so careful on what was just another construction job, he said something that stuck with me forever. Son, I don't build houses for other people. I build every house like my family's gonna live in it. That's the only way I know how to work. That's when I understood the difference between people who succeed and people who struggle. Successful people treat everything they touch like they own it, even when they don't. They bring an owner's mentality to a renter's situation. The truth is, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're careless with small things, you'll be careless with big things. If you cut corners when nobody's watching, you'll cut corners when everybody is watching. Your daily habits aren't separate from your big dreams. They're the building blocks of those dreams. Let me tell you about the morning that changed my life. I was 32 years old, frustrated with my results, and I finally got tired of being tired. I made a decision that night. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to treat my life like I'm building something permanent, something valuable, something worth being proud of. The next morning, instead of stumbling out of bed and rushing into my day, I did something different. I got up 30 minutes earlier. Not to work more, but to think more, to plan more, to design my day instead of just surviving it. That 30 minutes became the most valuable time investment I ever made. Here's what I discovered in that quiet 30 minutes. Most people don't design their days, they just react to them. They wake up and ask, what do I have to do today? Instead of asking, what do I want to create today? They approach their day like passengers instead of pilots. But owners think differently. Owners ask different questions. When an owner wakes up, he doesn't just think about getting through the day. He thinks about what he's building with the day. Every day is another brick in the foundation of his future. I started treating my time like a master craftsman treats his materials, with respect, with purpose, with a vision of what the finished product should look like. I stopped wasting time on things that didn't matter and started investing time in things that would compound. You know what the most successful people I've met have in common? They all have systems. Not just goals, anybody can set goals, but systems, daily practices, routines that serve their vision instead of their comfort. My mentor taught me something profound about this. He said, Jim, success is not a destination you arrive at. Success is a process you live by. It's not something you achieve once, it's something you practice daily. That's when I learned the power of small disciplines versus small neglects. A small discipline, like reading 10 pages of a good book every day, doesn't seem like much, but do it for a year, and you've read 12 books. Do it for 5 years, and you've read 60 books. Do it for 10 years, and you've gained the equivalent of a PhD in personal development. But here's the flip side. Small neglects compound too. Skip reading for one day, no big deal. Skip for a week, still not the end of the world. But skip for months, skip for years, and suddenly you're 10 years older, but not 10 years wiser. The compound effect works both ways. It works for you or against you, but it's always working. I remember the day I realized I had been majoring in minor things. I was spending hours watching television, complaining about my circumstances, hanging around people who had the same problems I had. Meanwhile, I was spending almost no time on the activities that could actually change my life. Reading, learning new skills, meeting successful people, planning my future. It's like being a gardener who spends all day pulling weeds but never plants any seeds. You might have a weed-free garden, but you won't have any vegetables either. So I flipped the script. I started spending major time on major things and minor time on minor things. I created what I call a daily design, a blueprint for how I wanted to invest each day. Here's how it worked. Every morning before the world started making demands on my time, I would ask myself 3 questions. What am I building today? What am I learning today? What am I becoming today? Those 3 questions became my daily compass. What am I building today? This wasn't just about work projects. This was about building better relationships, building better habits, building a better future. Every conversation, every decision, every action was either building something valuable or tearing something down. What am I learning today? I made a commitment to learn something new every single day. Not just random information, but something that would make me more valuable, more capable, more useful. I started carrying a small notebook and writing down at least one new idea every day. What am I becoming today? This was the most important question. Because success isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process of achieving it. Every day, you're becoming someone. The question is, are you becoming someone you're proud of? These 3 questions transformed my daily routine from a series of random activities into a purposeful design for success. Instead of just going through the motions, I was creating motion toward my goals. But here's what I learned about systems. They only work if you work them consistently. You can't build a house by working really hard for 3 days and then taking 4 days off. Construction doesn't work that way, and neither does personal development. Consistency beats intensity every time. It's better to read for 15 minutes every day than to read for 5 hours once a month. It's better to exercise for 20 minutes daily than to work out for 3 hours once a week. The magic happens in the daily disciplines, the small investments that don't seem important at the time but compound into extraordinary results over time. I started treating my daily routine like a successful business treats its systems. In business, you have systems for everything: systems for customer service, systems for quality control, systems for financial management. Why? Because systems create consistency, and consistency, it creates results. The same principle applies to your personal life. You need systems for your health. Not just hoping you'll feel like exercising, but having a routine that doesn't depend on your mood. You need systems for your mind, not just hoping you'll accidentally learn something, but having a daily practice of feeding your mind with valuable information. Most people hope for better results without changing their daily practices. But hope without a system is just a wish. Systems without hope are just mechanical. But hope combined with a system, that's how you build a life worth living. Your daily design isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about making sure that your daily activities are aligned with your long-term vision. It's about building something valuable one day at a time, one decision at a time, one discipline at a time. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, you'll have a choice. You can approach the day like someone who's just trying to get through it, or like someone who's building something with it. You can react to whatever happens, or you can create what happens. Remember what that master carpenter said: build every day like your future depends on it, because it does. I met an elderly woman at a conference years ago who told me a story that changed how I think about everything. She was 93 years old, sharp as a tack, and she had just planted a small apple tree in her backyard. When I asked her why she was planting a tree at her age, she smiled and said, "Young man, I may never taste the apples from this tree, but someone will. And that someone might plant another tree because of the shade this one provides." That's when I understood what real ownership looks like. It's not just about what you can get from life, it's about what you can give to life. True owners think beyond themselves. They build things that last longer than their own lifetime. Most people think small, gee, they think about next week, next month, maybe next year. But owners think generationally. They ask themselves, what am I creating that will still matter long after I'm gone? What am I building that will make the world a little better for the people who come after me? Let me tell you what I learned about thinking beyond yourself. For years, I was focused on my own success, my own goals, my own dreams. And you know what? I achieved some of those goals. But something was missing. Success felt empty when it was just about me. Then I started asking different questions. Instead of how can I succeed, I started asking, how can I serve? Instead of what can I get, I started asking, what can I give? Instead of how can I be happy, I started asking, how can I add value to other people's lives? That shift from success to significance, that's when my life really took off. Because when you focus on adding value to others, value comes back to you multiplied. Here's what's fascinating about legacy thinking. It changes how you make decisions today. When you know that your choices will echo through generations, you choose more carefully. When you realize that your example is teaching others how to live, you live more thoughtfully. I remember the moment this hit me personally. My daughter was watching me handle a difficult business situation. I was frustrated, ready to cut corners, ready to do whatever it took to solve my immediate problem. Then I caught her watching me and I realized she's not just seeing how I handle business, she's learning how to handle challenges in her own life. What kind of lesson was I teaching? That awareness changed everything. I started asking myself before every major decision, if everyone did what I'm about to do, what kind of world would we live in? That simple question became my moral compass. Owners don't just think about their own outcomes, they think about their impact. They understand that every action creates a ripple effect that goes far beyond what they can see. Every person they influence influences other people. Every lesson they teach gets passed on. Every example they set becomes a pattern someone else follows. Your life is not just about you. You're part of something bigger. You're a link in a chain that connects the past to the future. The question is, are you going to be a strong link or a weak one? The most successful people I've known all had one thing in common. They were building something bigger than themselves. Walt Disney wasn't just building theme parks. He was building dreams. Henry Ford wasn't just making cars, he was changing how people lived and worked. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't just fighting for civil rights, he was fighting for the soul of humanity. What are you building that's bigger than yourself? Here's what I've learned about leaving a legacy. It's not about grand gestures or monuments with your name on them. Legacy is built in the small moments, the daily interactions, the choices you make when nobody important is watching. Every time you choose integrity over advantage, you're building a legacy. Every time you help someone else succeed, you're building a legacy. Every time you do excellent work, regardless of the recognition, you're building a legacy. Every time you treat people with respect and kindness, you're building a legacy. The beauty of legacy thinking is that it makes ordinary moments meaningful. That conversation with a young person who's struggling, that might be the moment that changes their entire trajectory. That decision to do the right thing, even when it costs you, that might be the example someone needs to see to change their own behavior. I think about the people who influenced my life the most, and you know what's interesting? Most of them probably don't even remember the moments that changed me. A teacher who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. A businessman who took time to answer my questions. A friend who challenged me to think bigger. They were just living their lives, but their lives intersected with mine in ways that mattered forever. That's the power of ownership thinking applied to your impact on others. When you live like an owner, you naturally start influencing others to think like owners too. When you take responsibility for your results, you give others permission to take responsibility for theirs. When you refuse to be a victim of your circumstances, you inspire others to refuse to be victims of theirs. The ripple effect of your example is beyond anything you can measure. But here's what you can control. You can make sure that ripple is positive. You can make sure that your influence makes people stronger, not weaker. You can make sure that your legacy adds value to the world instead of taking value away from it. So let me ask you the ultimate ownership question. If you could see your life from the end looking back, what would you want to see? What would you want to have built? What would you want to have contributed? What would you want people to say about how you lived? Don't wait until you're 93 to start planting trees. Don't wait until tomorrow to start living like an owner. Don't wait until you feel ready to start making a difference. The world needs what you have to offer. Not someday, today. Not when you're perfect, now, while you're still growing. Not when you have it all figured out, right now, with whatever wisdom you've already gained. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, remember this. You're not just waking up to live another day. You're waking up to write another page in the story of your legacy. You're waking up to plant seeds that will grow long after you're gone. You're waking up to influence people in ways you may never know. The world is not just waiting for you to succeed. The world is waiting for you to contribute. The world is waiting for you to add your unique value to the human story. Wake up tomorrow like the world is yours, not to take from it, but to give to it. Not to use it up, but to make it better. Not to conquer it, but to serve it. That's what real ownership looks like. That's how you live a life that matters. That's how you create a legacy worth leaving.